So I was at the library today and I came across Night Shift by Stephen King, which features the story The Lawnmower Man, the short 10-page story. And I heard about the film and I started reading it. And then I thought, son of a bitch, The Lawnmower Man is on Tubi right now. So I decided to read the 10-page short story and then go home and check out the film. So I checked out the director's cut, noticed that it was 2 hours and 21 minutes, and I was like, how the fuck are they going to translate a 10-page story into a 2 hour and 21-minute film? Um, Very bizarre. So I started watching the film, and it had absolutely no correlation to the story whatsoever. Nobody in the film is named after anybody in the short story. I'm not going to talk about the short story for anybody who hasn't read it, but in the short story, there's this guy named Harold, and then there's the nameless Lawnmower Man. And in the movie, there's nobody named Harold, and the Lawnmower Man is not this fat, greasy guy like in the story. It's this very socially awkward, kind of like very slow character, like mentally slow, has the mind of a child. He looks like he's in his 20s or 30s, but apparently the actor was like 40, I think, when at the time of shooting or something like that. And it just branches off into this whole crazy virtual reality, science fiction, horror, thriller story. And stars Pierce Brosnan as well. He's a big name in this film. And yeah, so about the film itself, we start with Pierce Brosnan's character. His name is Larry Angelo, and he is studying virtual reality and basically enhancing the human mind. And of course, there's a lot of controversy behind this idea, still is today. So the plot is relevant for today, and you know, Oculus or whatever the hell they're doing today with virtual reality or plans on it. But it's obviously presented in a much more early 90s style. The visuals and the special effects and the CGI is absolutely horrendous, to say the least. I mean, we're talking Nintendo graphics in a live action film. It's just it's half live action and half Nintendo. It's absolutely ridiculous. But this guy is studying this virtual reality on monkeys, and at the beginning of this film, this chimp basically goes crazy, and he escapes, and he runs into this guy named Job, and Job is the slow guy. And Job basically, he's a lawnmower man. He mows some lawns. He works for the church for this father who is revealed to be very abusive to Job, as a matter of fact. And Job also works with this guy named Terry. And anyways, he discovers this chimp and he wants to protect this chimp because the chimp is hurt. And Pierce Brosnan's character, Larry Angelo, is trying to get the chimp back. The chimp is crazy. It ends up being killed and shot at. So animal violence against animals, anybody sensitive to that, there is that in this film. Obviously not actual violence to actual animals, but there is a scene where a chimp gets shot down. So anybody sensitive to that, just know that going in. It's, I think, mentioned that Job mows Larry Angelo's lawn as well. However, he's basically, you know, a part-time worker for the church kind of thing. And the way he mows the lawns, he's so awkward with it. The way he walks behind the lawnmower and shit. Anyways, Larry Angelo's character is really struggling with his company because they're not taking his, they're not getting along in what Angelo wants to do with his studies versus what the company wants to do with Angelo, and they're basically using Angelo. Well, Angelo takes it upon himself to, behind the scenes and his own, like outside of his work, use Job as an experiment and basically takes Job in as a guinea pig. And he says that he means well, and he doesn't treat Job badly or anything, but he definitely is using Job for his own benefits and not, you know, rewarding Job with much. But he uses virtual reality and like enhancing the human mind to see if he could basically make Job more intelligent, raise his IQ. And he does successfully, but way, 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 way too successfully, to the point where Job is studying at astronomical, impossible speeds and learning at impossible speeds. Now, when Job starts to get smarter, which he does, he also starts to get really jacked, and he also starts to get much more handsome and, present himself a lot better, and but especially like getting really ripped. Like he just starts to get ripped from out of nowhere. He doesn't exercise or anything. It's like his intelligence is also physically changing him, which is strange and doesn't make a whole lot of sense at all. But it happens, and then one of the neighbors, or no, one of the house owners that he's mowing the lawn for, a woman, I think she's recently divorced, and she starts hitting on him like crazy. She runs into Job at a gas station, and he's still like in shy mode because he's never been with a woman. He's never been like sexual at all. But she's all over him, and she's like very forward about having him over mow her lawn, and she'd love to have him mow her lawn sometime, and pun intended, probably. It's 1992. And yeah, it's I mean it's a fun film. It's ridiculous though because the whole chimp situation at the beginning doesn't really return. Like there's the first 10 minutes of the movie that deals with that chimp situation, but then there's no more chimp situation. The rest is Job. The film bounces around in theme a lot, like in the way it's vibed, like it's the way it feels. I'm trying to find the word for it. It's tone, I guess. It switches tones a lot, and like I said, the special effects are just absolutely out of this world. I mean, the visual effects a lot of times feel or look exactly like every single YouTube video that I've ever seen portray what it's like to be on LSD or acid. It looks like that with the colors, the way the objects move, the faces, the the pixeled images and stuff like that. It looks like an acid trip. There's one in particular that literally looks like an acid trip where it's more blurry and the colors are kind of like melting into each other. Like I said, everything that I've seen on YouTube that shows what it feels like to be on acid, I'm way too chicken shit to ever try those hard drugs. I probably never will. Even if I was like monitored, even if I was watched, I don't have the guts to attempt to go through a trip like that at all. So I've only seen visuals on what people say it's like and what people say it feels like. But the visuals in this film really, really reminded me purely of what I've seen an acid trip or an LSD trip to feel like. The actors also have to be in some, like when they're in virtual reality, they have to be in these things where their hands and feet are attached to some things, and it's like a wheel that spins them around all over the place, like those things that you sometimes see in fairs where a person will get into a ball and they'll sit in a chair and then they'll like rotate everywhere, or where astronauts practice when they're being in space, how they sit in this rotating ball and they spin and it looks like it would make somebody sick to death. The actors have to be in those things during the virtual reality scenes, and I mean, it looks like an adventure to say the least. There's one scene in particular that I definitely want to mention in virtual reality mode when Job goes to into virtual reality with the woman that he was mowing the lawn for, and they are in this Nintendo looking pixelated cartoon world, and they're making out, they're having sex. This scene totally 100% reminded me of a scene in the film Holy Motors. For anybody who's seen Holy Motors, almost to the point where I wouldn't like if it was to like if some commentary was to say that Holy Motors took inspiration from that scene for the scene that they put in Holy Motors, it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever, because that's the first thing I thought of when I saw that scene in Lawnmower Man. And then towards the as the film progresses, as Job starts to get all intelligent mode, he starts to develop telekinetic powers as well, so he's able to move objects. He commits murder. He murders this one guy named Jake, who has always been a bully to him, and has always like been physically abusive to him, and is basically the town asshole. So he ends up murdering him at a gas station with his telekinetic powers. And then he also ends up murdering the father of this little kid named Peter, who he's always been really close friends with, and hung out with Peter all the time because he has the mind of a child himself, so he would hang out with a lot of the younger kids around town. And he murders his father because his father is very abusive to Peter. And again, comparing to the book, and by the way, after like midway through this film, I looked up on Wicca. I'm like, this has nothing to do with the story that I just read, so I got to look up some information. Apparently, Stephen King sued the whole production company of this film for putting his name on the project because they called it Stephen King's The Lawnmower Man, and it has so fucking little to do with The Lawnmower Man, the story by Stephen King. Like, it's ridiculous. It's this one kill scene where the father of this abusive kid is murdered that weaves the story, the 10-page story, into that one scene with that one kill. That's it. With a lawnmower that's basically moving by itself. The reason it's moving by itself, the reason why the father is killed, the father himself, the character, totally different, totally removed from the book, has nothing to do with the story whatsoever. Being married, having a kid, all that shit, all different. Like, totally different situation happening with with weaving in what happened in the story into that one 2-minute scene. And then they call it a Stephen King story, with the rest of the fucking 2 hours and 15 minutes being totally different and totally out of left field from what Stephen King wrote. So I know Stephen King is very, very passionate with his projects, and he likes the source material to be respected and taken seriously. We all know what happened with The Shining there. But like, I don't blame him for being upset about that, where they take the name of his story and, oh, but we weaved the story into that one kill scene. Yeah, but you changed the whole scene and you just had one element in that scene. One element, like, literally. It's crazy. Oh, the lawnmower was red. It was red in your story. Okay, wow. Thanks for keeping the lawnmower red. And changing everything else, including everybody's freaking name. Oh boy, it was funny. The movie was good. I had fun with it. It's corny as hell. It's far from perfect, and we're talking like creme de la creme cheese with it. But I don't know. Pierce Brosnan was this like crazy scientist, like egotistical asshole pretty much. And the guy who played Job, who I recognize his face immediately, I think it's Jeff Fahey is his name. Jeff Fahey, if I'm not mistaken. But I recognize his face immediately. I'm like, I know I've seen this guy before in films. I can't name one, but I know as soon as you give me the titles of other things he's been in, I'll know it. He was in Planet Terror as the barbecue guy. I forget his name in the film, but the barbecue guy who's like trying to perfect the barbecue sauce. And he was also in Psycho 3. And yeah, so he definitely had that recognizable face, and he did a marvelous job playing both slow Job and really smart and crazy Psycho Job. So he evolved in his character very, very well, and I appreciated seeing that. And even though the effects are ridiculously bad, they're supposed to be that way because we're talking virtual reality of 1992. So, then it was like an astronomical invention. It's mentioned in the film by Job that by 2001, every person in the world will be connected to virtual reality, which means they will be connected to me. And yeah, he goes all God mode. He even, at the climax of the film, in virtual reality mode, puts Larry Angelo onto like a crucifix and starts playing God. And yeah, it was an enjoyable film, and I'm glad I watched it. I always watch the director's cuts if they're available. And if I could find the Scream Factory release with a slipcover, I do not buy collector's editions of Scream Factory films without the slipcover. I'm a snob like that. Then I will definitely pick it up. I will certainly pick it up if I can find it with that slip. And yeah, it's a cheesy '90s, early '90s good times. So 1992's The Lawnmower Man is definitely one to check out now that it's on Tubi. So I mean, yeah, if you like cheesy horror films from the '90s, early '90s specifically, I'd say go and check it out whenever you can. And I'd say subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you like to listen to my voice or if you like my film reviews. I'll be back with more when I can, so stay tuned for that. And until next one, have a good one. Take care and cheers.